Hello guys, welcome to this Blender interior crash course. In this video we will cover everything we need to create interiors in Blender. So first we will block out the basic shape of our room. Then we will set up some simple lightings. Then we will add some materials. And then we will add some interior stuff. And at last we will finalize our lighting. So I hope you are excited, so let's get started. Okay, so here's our default scene, so let's delete this light. And let's select our cube and let's press 1 to go to front view mode. Now let's go to edit mode. Now let's select all of these faces by going to wireframe mode, and now press G and Z to move it upwards. Now you can see that the origin point is right below of our cube. Now let's go to object mode. So now let's set the height of our room. So the average height of ceiling is 12 feet. Now in Blender the units are in meters. Now let's select this Z dimension and let's type in 12, and now if you type single inverted comma it will convert it to feet. Now we have set the height to 12 feet. Now let's lock this Z value, so now we cannot mess up with our height. Now let's set the length and width of our room. So for now let's set the X to 30 feet and let's set Y to 35 feet. Okay, so now the basic shape of our room is ready. Now let's set our camera angle. So let's press 0 to go to camera view. Now if you press shift and tilde key, which is located right below escape, you can see that we can move freely in our scene. And now if you press WAS or D, it will move in our scene. So let's go under our cube. Okay, so now if you try to move our cube back and forth, you can see that this face of the cube is coming in our scene. So in this case let's go to camera view, and you can see here clip start. Let's increase this value, and now if you go back in Z axis, you can see that this face will no longer come in our way. So let's increase the clip start value just a little bit. Okay, just like that. And now let's move it on the x-axis just a little bit. Okay, so this is looking kind of good. Now let's move it down. Okay, so I have got a rough idea of how my interior will look. Okay, so now we need to add some subdivisions to add windows in our room. So let's select our cube and let's go to edit mode, and let me just split my view. So vertical split, and I will set this one to camera view and this one to perspective. Now let's go under our scene, and now let's add in some subdivisions. Now let's select a loop cut and let's add in some subdivisions. So you can see in the camera view where we are adding subdivision. So let's add in one here for a big window, and I think we need to change the focal length of our camera. So let's select our camera and let's change the focal length to, I think 25 will look great. Okay, now let's move our camera a bit forward and let's decrease the start clipping value. Okay, now I think it will look cool. Now as you can see, it is giving some kind of dynamic look to our scene. Okay, now let's go to edit mode again, and let's add in some edge loops. So now if you have already added an edge loop, don't worry, you can move that. If you press G and G again, you can see that we can slide our edge loop. So first we will add in here, and then let's add in again another one right here. Okay, now let's add in one here. This will be the kitchen window, and let's add in another one right here. Okay, now let's add in some horizontal edge loops. So let's add in one right here, and you can see, if you take a look at here, you can get the height of the windows. So I will add one here and another one right here. Okay, Now let's join all of these views, and now let's go to face selection and let's select all both of these faces, and now press E to extrude and let's extrude them outside, and press delete to delete these faces. Now we have some thickness for our windows. Now I have to add another wall, something like this, you can see. Now let's add in some other edge loops, and I will add in one, I guess right here. Okay, and let's select these faces. So I will select this one, sorry, this one, and let's select this one. Okay, now let's right click and select bridge faces. Now it has bridged the faces, and now we have a wall like this. Now let's create a corridor kind of thing here. So let's select these faces and let's extrude them inwards. Now it will look like that, it will have some space. Now as you can see that our scene has cool windows. I think I should increase the size of my room, so let's set that to, let's say, 14 feet. Okay, now it's looking kind of cool. Now let's go to rendered view and let's change the renderer from EV to cycles, and let's go to world settings and let's change the color from background to sky texture. And now let's go to render settings and change the device from CPU to GPU, because I have fast GPU than my CPU. Now let's go to output properties and tick render region. Now you can see we have a light setup, something like this, but I have to tweak it a little bit. But first let's go to render setting and turn on denoising. Okay, and let's set the start sample to 100. Okay, now let's go to world settings, and now you can see that we have some parameters for our sky texture. So I will set the air to 0, and let's decrease this ozone and dust to 0. Okay, now you can see that it is completely black, but don't worry. So let's set the ozone to 0.1, and let's turn this dust to 0.05, or let's say 0.1 to this for this one also. And now let's increase this strength, so let's turn to 50. Okay, so now let me tell you why I have set the air to 0, because air has some color in it. So if I increase its value, you can see that it is appearing yellow. That's why I have set this air to 0, so that we are getting some white light in here. Now let's see where is our sun. So let's set the sun intensity to 0. Okay, so now we can see that it is appearing black, so let's increase its size. Okay, so the bigger the sun, the softer the light will be, and let's rotate it. Okay, let's set the strength to 1 and sun intensity to 50, and let's set the sun size to 1 for sharper light, because I want some estimation of my lighting. So let's set the strength to 0.1. Okay, now we can see that the sunlight is coming from our windows. Now we have to change the rotation, so let's change it like this. Okay, so straight lighting, and let's change the elevation value. Okay, so now it will directly hit the wall and it will be reflected all over our room. Now let's change the sun size to 75 for soft lighting. Okay, now let's change the sun intensity to 1 for now, or we can do the vice versa. So let's set the sun intensity to 10, and let's decrease the sky texture value from 0.1 to 0.01 or 0.05. Okay, so now we have straightforward lighting in our scene. Now as you can see, our scene is totally brightened up. For the background, we'll talk about it later. Now let's add in some materials. So now let's go to solid view mode and let's select our cube, and let's go to edit mode. Now let's select this face for our floor, and let's press shift G to select similar, and let's select similar normal. Now you will see that it has selected our whole floor, but it has also selected this window portion. So let's control drag to deselect them. Now let's go to materials and let's add in a material, and let's hit new, and I will call it wooden floor, and let's hit assign. And now let's go to object mode. But now we will face a problem. So if you go to overlays and turn on face orientation, you can see that it is completely red and the outer portion is completely blue. So on the red portion the materials are not tiled correctly. So let's go to edit mode and press A to select all. Now press Ctrl Shift and to recalculate the normals, and we have fixed the issue. Okay, so now for the wooden material, I have found a cool website called Ambient CG. They are totally free and very high quality. So let's select material and let's search wood. And they will give us so many filters to work with. So let's select floor and let's select parquet. And I like this one, so let's download this one. So it is wood floor 052, and don't worry, you will get the link in the description, and I will download the 4K one. And now you have downloaded a zip file, so just unzip that and let's go to shading, and let's select our cube and go to camera view, and let's go to edit mode, and let's select this face which have selected similar, and then press Shift G again and select material. Now it has selected the faces on which we have assigned our material. Now you can see that here's our material, wooden floor. So now if you have the Node Wrangler add-on turned on, select our principal BSDF and press Ctrl Shift T, and it will take you to the file explorer and select the PBR material you have just downloaded. Okay, so now I will select this color and normal DX, which means direct X, and this roughness. Okay, so now as you can see it has created a PBR setup for us, but if you turn off overlays you can see that it is not correctly tiled. So don't worry, with these faces selected, go to UV and Smart UV project. Now as you can see it has correctly tiled our material. Now let's go to object mode and let's change the scale. So let's change that to 5, or let's say 3. Okay, 3 is looking good. Now let's go to layout again and let's see in our render view. Okay, so our wooden floor is looking very good. And also let's change our sun intensity from 10 to 30. Now it is looking very cool. Now let's add some windows. So to add windows, let's go to edit and preferences, and under add-ons search IK mesh, and let's check this add-on. And with this add-on you will get many presets of windows and doors. So let's go in here and let's change this, and let's turn on cavity and shadows so that we can get a better look. Now let's add in some windows. So let's shift right click here to bring our 3D cursor, and let's go to add mesh and arc mesh, and I will add in a rail window. Now if you have add a rail window, then press N and then go to create, and you will see these parameters. So let's change these parameters. So this one is for height, so let's increase the height. Okay, just like that. Let's decrease just a little bit. Okay, now let's change the rotation to 90, and let's increase the width. Let's increase the width. By the way, you can also change the scale. Okay, so now let's copy this whole hierarchy. So select hierarchy and let's press Shift D to duplicate, and let's duplicate on the y-axis, and let's decrease its scale for this one, and I will copy this again. on the y-axis. And let's move all of them a bit forward. Okay, now they are looking cool. Now let's go to rendered view, and also it creates an automatic material for us, so don't worry. Okay, so let's change this material of the windows. So I don't like white, so let's create a black material. So select window frame, hit new, and let's create a black material. Okay, cool. Now let's add in some interior stuff to fill this gap. So for that I'm using a add-on called Blender Kit. Blender Kit is a cool add-on for free materials, models and sort of stuff, and you will get the link in the description so you can download that. And now if you have downloaded that, let's go to edit, preferences and select install, and just select your zip file and hit install add-on. And also don't forget to check that in here. And if you completely install that, you will get a search panel like this, so you can search in here anything. Okay, so now in the search panel let's search kitchen, and if you want free models you can click on filters and check free first. Now let's add in this modern kitchen in our scene. So let's shift right click here to add in our 3D cursor, and let's select this one. Now it will automatically download the modern kitchen. Now you can see that it has added in our scene, but it is way back. So let me just place it really fast. And also I don't want this thing, so let's delete this one. Okay, now it is looking very cool. Now let's move it on the x-axis just a little bit. Okay, now as you can see it is looking super cool, and later we will change its material. Now let's add in our dining table and chairs. So let's place our 3D cursor here, and let's overlays, and let's search dining table. Okay, so after a lot of time searching I have found this one, so let's add in this one. And let's see, and let's match the scale to our kitchen. So I think this might be right, and let's move it on the y-axis just a little bit. Okay, also let's move our camera a bit backwards, and let's increase the clipping distance. Let's scale it down just a little bit. Okay, and now let's add in some chairs for our dining table. Okay, so this one is looking very cool, so let's add in this one. And as you can see they are pretty small, so let's scale them. And let's select hierarchy and duplicate on the x-axis. And if you are getting this distracting face in your scene, you can just increase the view clipping. So go to view and turn on and increase the clip distance. Now you will get rid of that. So also increase. Okay, so this is good. Okay, and now I will add some random rotation, so it should look very realistic, because in real life nothing is very perfect. Okay, just a bit random rotation, and let's select this one and select hierarchy and duplicate it on this side also. And if you are think that your room size is small, you can just select these faces and you can increase the size of your room. And let's just move on the y-axis. Okay, And let's select our camera and let's move it a bit backwards. Because we don't have a floor plan, we have to work roughly, but if you do have a floor plan, you can use that. Okay, so now I think we are lacking some space on the y-axis, so let's change the y dimension to 45 feet, and I think it is quite fine. Okay, so now I think it is good. Now let's see it in rendered view. Okay, now you can see our premium chairs and our kitchen. Now let's add in our sofas. So if you want to create your own sofa, I have made a specific tutorial on how to create sofa in Blender, so you can watch that and then you can create it and import it in this scene, and I am doing just that. So let's go to file, append, and I will select my blend file, and let's hit append, and I will append object, and let's hit append, and you can see that we have added our sofa in our scene. Now let me just position this real quick, and let's move our camera a bit backwards. Okay, just like that, and let's increase the size of our window because big windows will look very cool. So let's go to edit mode and let's select this face and press G and Y, and now let's select our windows, and let's move it on the y-axis, and let's scale them on the y-axis. Okay, now let's see how it's looking. Okay, so our scene is now looking very dynamic, and now let's change the material of this sofa. So let's go to shading view, and where's our sofa? Okay, so it is compiling texture, but we don't have much time, so let's go to rendered view, and let's select our sofa, and I will convert it to black and white. So let's delete both of these nodes, and let's add in a RGB to BW converter and plug it into the color. And now let's add in a hue and saturation node and plug it into the color, and let's plug the color into the base color. Now hit Ctrl V to render region, and let's see. So I think we need to add in a bright contrast node, so let's delete this one and let's search bright contrast and plug the value in the color and color into the color. Now let's increase the contrast to make it more grayish. Okay, so I think this is looking fine, so let's go to layout, and let me just change my camera view to something like this, and let's move it on the x-axis, and also let's change the scale of our sofa. So let's select both of this, all of this cube, and let's increase its scale. Okay, now it is looking kind of good. Now let's add in some sofa seats in here, so let's search sofa chairs, and we will add in some simple sofa chairs, and also we will change the material to this our original sofa. So let's find in some cool. Okay, so I like this one, so place our 3D cursor here and let's add in this one, and let's increase the scale just like that, and let's rotate on the 90 degree and give it some randomness. Okay, so now let's go to rendered view again, And let's assign the same material that we have for the couch to this one also. So let's select our sofa chair and let's go to material, and let's change the chair fabric to brown fabric, which is the original one from this one. Okay, now they are looking good. Now let's change the scale once again. Okay, so now let's duplicate this chair on the x-axis. So press shift D and on the y-axis, sorry, on the y-axis, and let's give it some randomness just like that, and let's move it on the x-axis so that we can see the chair behind one. Okay, now let's move our camera a bit backwards, and let's select our sofa and let's move it on the x-axis just a little bit, and let's select our sofa chairs and let's move them also on the y-axis. Okay, so now let's add in some side tables. So search side tables, and now let's look for a cool side table. Okay, so I like this one, so let's click this one and let's add in. Now let's select this one and let's scale it up a bit, and now if you press S to scale, now if you hold shift and then if you press Z, it will only scale on the X and Y axis but not in the Z axis. So okay, because I wanted to increase its radius, just scale it down a little bit and let's move it on the Y axis. Now let's duplicate this one and let's scale it down on the Z axis just a little bit, and let's move it on the X axis, and let's duplicate this one also, move it on the X axis and move it on the Y axis and increase scale just a little bit. And I don't want the top to be made of wood, so I will change that to black metal. So to do that, let's delete the wood material and it will turn everything to black. Now if we take a look at our scene, you can see that now it is started to getting very interesting. So let's get back to our work, and now let's add in a side table here. So let's search for a cabinet and let's see for a cool one, a wood and classic. Okay, so I like this one, so let's select this empty and rotate it on the 90 degree, and let's take a look from camera view. Let's move it on the y-axis and let's scale it all the way up, and let's move it on the x-axis just a little bit. And now to give a room some cool vibes, let's add in some paintings. So let's search for paintings. Okay, so I like this one, so shift right click here and add in this one, and let's rotate it on the 90 degree and on the Z axis on 90 degree, and let's scale it up. And I think its orientation is wrong, so let's rotate it on the X and 180 degree. I think now it is looking good. Okay, now let's add in another one in here. So let's see for a full painting. Okay, so I like this one, so let's add in here. Now it's time to change our lighting, so let's go to world settings and let's turn on rendered view. Now let's change our lighting. So let's change the strength from 1, and let's disable our sun for now. And now let's increase its strength, but first let's turn the dust to 0.1. Okay, now let's increase its strength to 5, or let's say 10. And now let's add in our sun. So let's set the sun intensity to 0.1 for now. Okay, now we have a very brightened up scene and it is looking very good also. But I think it is looking very overexposed here. So let's change the strength to 5. Okay, so I think 8 might look good. Okay, we will solve that later, but for now it is looking very good. Now we have to add some details to our scene, so let's add in some sweep profiles. So let's add in a cube here, and you will know in a minute what I am saying. So let's add in a cube, and let's decrease our clipping. So let's decrease its size, and let's move it on the x-axis and a bit on the y-axis. Okay, now let's press Ctrl A to apply the scale. Now let's go to edit mode, and now let's select one edge and press Ctrl B to bevel. And as you can see, we are adding a bevel. But now let's confirm the bevel, and don't click anywhere, click on this drop down and change the profile type from super ellipse to custom. And now we can assign some custom shape to it. So but first let's increase the segments to, let's say, 30, and let's change its shape. So the goal is to add some cool sweep profile. Okay, now as you can see, I have created a cool profile. So let's select faces, and let's select this face, and you have to just move it on the y-axis. Okay, so now we have added a sweep profile here. Now let's copy this side to every side. And also you will come to a point when you have to join these two patterns with each other. So let's select both of them and press Ctrl J to join them. Now let's go to edit mode, and let's select both of these faces and right click and bridge faces, and add in a number of cut to 1, and your problem is solved. And also shade it auto smooth. And now for the bottom part, let's again add in a cube here, and let's do the same, but this time we don't have to add in a profile, we just have to bevel it. Now let's bevel it, and let's change the type from custom to super ellipse, and let's decrease the segments. Okay, now let's repeat the same process. Okay, so after doing everything, now let's go to rendered view. Now you can see that we have a pretty cool interior. Now let's change some materials. So I am not doing big things. Now if we, let's select this one and let's go to shading. I am just changing the material from color to black and white because I like that color scheme. So let's change this one to gray. So let's change this one to a bit of gray. Let's select this one and let's decrease the saturation. Now it is looking good. and I think that's all we have to change in materials, I guess. Okay, now let's add in some carpets. So let's shift right click here, add mesh plane, and also you can use any image for carpet. So I'm using just a simple image I have downloaded from Google. Okay, so press Ctrl A to apply the scale. Now let's add in a material for this one. So rename it as carpet 1, and let's add in a texture. So if you select principal BSDF and press Ctrl T, you can add in an image texture. And I will select this image and let's set the tiling to 2, and let's also add in a bump node. So add in a bump and plug it in here, and let's plug the color into the height, and now it has some bump in it, not very much, just a little bit. And also let's add in another carpet near our dining and our chairs. And now let's cover this empty area. So I will just reposition these sofa seats and this carpet because it is very congested in here. And now let's add in a material for our wall. So let's go to ambient CG, and now let's search for wall, and we have got this one, so plaster 1. So let's download this one, and I will download in 4K. Link is in the description. So let's go to shading tab again, and let's select our cube and make sure to, and I will make sure that I have selected the correct material. And now press Ctrl Shift T and select our material. If you are getting this glitch like thing, it is not glitch, it is because of the noise threshold. So if I turn the noise threshold from 0.1 to 0.005, you can see that everything is looking quite clear. And now we can change our material easily, but first let's go to edit mode and press A and UV Smart UV project. Okay, and now let's change the tiling of our material. So for that we have to go in viewport shading. Okay, so now let's change the tiling from 1 to 5, and let's see from here. So 3, not 3, okay, 4 is looking kind of good. So let's go to render view again, and as you can see, and again we have messed up our wooden material. So let's increase the tiling for that. So let's turn that to 5 or 10, not 10, but I think 8 will look good. Okay, so now our interior is almost complete. The one thing that is remaining is that we have to add some ceiling lights, a background, and some curtains. So if you want to create curtains, I have created a tutorial for creating the easiest curtain in Blender, so you can watch that and you can add in from there. Okay, so after repositioning the curtains, let's create a groove for our curtains. So let's select our cube and let's go to edit mode, and let's add in 2 edge loops. So one right here, and let's add another one right here. And let's select these faces, and but first let's add in a loop cut, And now let's select these faces and let's extrude them upwards. Nothing special. Now let's go to object mode and let's select these curtains and move them a bit upwards. And now we can't see what's in there and it looks very cool also. Now let's change the material of our curtains because we need some translucent curtains in our scene, and if we just set the material like this, it will just block the light and it will make our scene very darker. So let's select our material. Let's add in a mix shader first. So let's add in mix shader and plug it into the surface. Now let's add in a translucent BSDF and a transparent BSDF and plug both of them in the shader. Okay, and now let's decrease or increase the factor value. So let's decrease it. So this is completely transparent and this is completely translucent. So let's decrease it to, let's say, I think 0.5 was right. Okay, so I will let that on 0.5. Okay, and now it's time to change our background. So let's add in some background images. So go to add and go to image and images as planes. And if you don't have images as plane option, you can go to edit preferences and add-ons and search for images as planes. Now I will select this image and it has added this image. Now let's get out of the camera view and let's place it outside the window and let's rotate on the 90 degree and press G and Z and let's scale it all the way up. And now let's go to rendered view to see how it looks. And let's move it on the y-axis. And for this image I have searched on Google for London streets or residential area or resident, and you can find many images like that. And let's scale it all the way up. But now you can see that it is blocking light. If I move it on the y-axis, you can see that it is blocking our light. So to avoid that, go to object properties and under visibility uncheck shadow and it will not block our light anymore. And let's move it on the y-axis and let's move it a bit upwards. Okay, now it is looking cool, but you can see that our environment is looking very dim. So let's go to shading and let's plug this color into the emission also. And now you can see that it has fixed our problem. Now let's duplicate this again and let's move it on the y-axis. Okay, so I'm making sure that it should not look very repetitive, but I think it is kind of looking good. And now let's add in some ceiling lights. So you can add any type of ceiling lights, but this time I will try something a bit different. So let's search ceiling lights and let's look for a cool one. Okay, so I have found this one, so let's add in this one here. So shift right click here and let's add in this one, and where it is, so let's move it down and let's rotate it on the x-axis on the 90 degree, I mean on the 180 degree. Okay, and let's move it upwards and let's scale it down on the z-axis and scale it all the way up. And now let's see in rendered view how it's looking. And wow, it is looking very good. So now let's use this one. So let's move it on the y-axis and on the x-axis. Okay, and let's select hierarchy and let's keep on duplicating it. Okay, so now let's see how our scene is looking, and I think it should look very cool. Whoa, it is looking very cool, man. Now let's change the position of our camera. So let's select our camera and let's do a render. So let's select our camera and let's move it on the z-axis. Okay, so now our scene is looking very good. Now let's go to world settings and let's change the strand to a bit higher number for even more brightness. So not 50, but let's set that to 20. Okay, so now if you want even more brightness, you can add in a fill light behind our camera, which is kind of cheating, but not cheating, but it is used for correcting our scene. So let's add an area light and let's rotate it on 90 degree and let's change its size. Okay, now let's go to rendered view and let's see how our scene is looking. For now we want to get rid of this dark area, so let's change the power to 100. Okay, and now let's move our light on the x-axis like that, and let's see. Okay, so now it is kind of looking very odd, so change it to 50, or let's say 20. Okay, now 20 is looking fine. And also let's select our ceiling lights and let's change its material and we will set that to black because it should create some contrast. So let's change it to black, and for this one also, and let's set this one also to black. Okay, now they are looking very cool. Now let's add in some plants for much more coolness, and I will add this one golden one right here. And let's also add in some stuff here, and let's add in some books. Okay, so kind of stylish. Let's add in this one and let's scale them up just a little bit. Okay, now our scene is completely ready, and now let's take a look at it in rendered view, how it's looking. Okay, perfect. Now let's go to render settings and I will render it at 400 samples, and in the light paths I will set the preset to full global illumination because I want it to be completely high quality. And let's go to color management and let's set that to medium high contrast or high contrast. Okay, so I think medium high contrast are looking good, and that's it. And now press F12 and your production quality interior is ready. Okay, so that's it guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to support me, you can support on my Gumroad page, link is in the description, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Have a nice day.